G'day everyone, Buck up in a stinking hot far north Queensland. It is like living in an oven up here at the moment. It is putrid. So I've got the BT50 under the shade here because it's too hot to do it out in the sun. It is bullshit. Hey listen, what I'm going to tell you today, a lot of people are obviously not aware of it. A lot of people aren't aware of a lot of the laws that get around, and a lot of people say we're over-governed and too many laws and too many rules and regulations, and I agree with you with a lot of those. And one of the ones that a lot of people probably don't know about is fishing rod holders on your bull bars, everyone. This has been around a long time now. When I had my old four-wheel drive, I used to drive around with my fishing rod holders attached to the bull bar. Well, at the time I didn't realise it's illegal. It's illegal here in Queensland to drive around with your fishing rod holders on your four-wheel drive when there's no fishing rods in there. Okay, so each state's got their own legislation. Queensland's a little bit more lenient than some of the other states. So you see a lot of people, and I see them all the time around this town, you see them all the time. People have got their rod holders attached to their bull bars. And unless they are retracted behind the profile of the bull bar or removed, they are illegal. You cannot drive around with your rod holders attached to your bull bar unless there's fishing rods in there. In some states, check your local legislation, in some states you can't even drive around even if there's fishing rods in there. And I'm not going to mention the states, I've read up on it. But in Queensland, you can have rod holders. You can have rod holders on your bull bar, but you must have fishing rods in there. As soon as you take the fishing rods out, that has got to come out. Now there goes the problem. Most fishing rod holders are attached by clamps there, and the last thing you want to be doing is taking them on and off every 5 minutes. Absolute pain in the backside. So what I did is I went into BCF the other day. They didn't have them. I thought surely there's got to be some rod holders where you just put the bracket on and you can remove this part. Well, I've got one here in my hand. It's from Wilson, the company called Wilson, and I had to get this delivered from Anaconda. We don't have Anaconda here in this town. So I got online and I got this for about $60. So it comes with a bracket that you can attach to your bull bar, and then it's got a pin there so you can take it on and off. And that way you can just leave the clamps on because you don't want to be taking them on and off every 5 minutes. This thing here, because of the shape of my ARB bull bar, the rods were still angling across the bonnet. They weren't going up over the left. On my old Nissan Terrano, I had more of a straighter bull bar. These things were more straighter, and the rods were on the passenger side. This one here, I put it here the other day, and the rods are still in my line of sight, guys, when I'm driving. So I thought, oh, I've just done my money. So what have I done? I've gone and mounted it, and I'll show you towards the end of this clip. I've gone and mounted it on the roof rack because there's nothing in Queensland that says I cannot have a rod holder on the roof rack and have my fishing rods on the roof rack, as long as they're obviously secured. And I'll go through that a little bit later on, okay? About how and I'll give you a demo. I'll actually put that on, I'll put the rods in and give you a look there. Now you're probably going, Buck, you're full of shit. Where'd you get this legislation from? Well, for those that don't know, guys, I'm an ex-copper. I was never a traffic cop, so I never got into the pedantic side of things like this, okay? I don't think it's a law that the police even enforce. I've heard that they were getting people off the barge coming onto Fraser Island, and if anyone had rod holders on their four-wheel drive without fishing rods, they were copping a ticket. I only read about that. I can't confirm that if that was true or not. Now listen, for something to be illegal or whatever, there has to be legislation, and I'm going to take you through and direct you to the Queensland legislation on that. If you're in Victoria, New South Wales or wherever, you're going to have to look up your own legislation. You'll find it'll be very similar, and in some states it's even more stricter, is that a word? More strict than Queensland. So I was going to say something there, I just It's so hot, my brain is fried. I can't think of what I was saying. So this here, this law comes under Transport Operations Vehicle Standards Instruction, September 2021. So Transport Operations Vehicle Standards 2021. That's the Queensland legislation. I'm going to read it off here. This is off a police site, the Bundaberg police site, that have an information thing on their Facebook page. So sometimes it's good to get on your local police thing and you can ask them questions, and they'll, if you're not sure of some legislation or whatever, especially when it's to do with traffic and that, that's what I was going to say. Why are these rules in place? Well, apparently some pedestrians have been hit by a four-wheel drive, as if that wouldn't be bad enough as it is, getting hit by a 4B and a bull bar. Apparently the rod holders are like a set of bloody butcher's knives being on the front. Apparently if they poke out the front on a straighter bull bar, if people have got them poking out, bicycle riders in the cities and that can go past and cut themselves open. That's why you can't have anything protruding out off the profile of the bull bar. And I know there are a lot of people out there, and I'm going down a different rabbit hole here. How many times do you see people, I'm talking about in Queensland, once again, may be different in other states. Graham Cahill in Western Australia has got that many spotlights mounted on the top of his bull bar. It may be legal in Western Australia, I don't know. But in Queensland, you can't have spotlights or a light bar mounted above the top of your bull bar. You can't have them mounted out the front. So the profile of the bull bar here, the spotlights have got to be mounted behind the profile of the bull bar. You can't have lights and light bars up above. You can't have them in front. They have to be down where these are, or if you've got a light bar, it has to hang down. There are brackets that go there, and the light bar goes below the top rail of your bull bar. So it's illegal also to have lights fitted above your bull bar in Queensland. Other states may be very similar, may have similar legislation. This one, I'm just talking about fishing rod holders, guys. Transport Operations Vehicle Standards Instruction, September 2021. And I'm going to read this so you know that I'm not full of shit. Fishing rod holders can be fitted when in use. They must be removed or retracted behind the profile of the bull bar when they are not in use. Now this is Queensland. Rod holders are a risk to pedestrians if the vehicle is moving or parked due to sharp edges. Okay, so I guess if you're a push bike rider and you do come along and in the cities and that, where it's, you know, you see bike riders going really close to vehicles, these things are protruding out off the front of a bull bar, and a bike rider's doing 40k an hour and takes that, he slice himself open, and that's where they're going with this. Okay, rod holders must comply with the following: be attached to the left hand side of the vehicle or the passenger side. One would think that's common sense. I was at BCF the other day looking for this particular rod holder, which they didn't have here in Innisfail. BCF don't sell them. And I saw a guy with some rod holders on his four-wheel drive, and I thought, oh yeah, here's another bloke, doesn't know the rule. Rod hold. And then I thought, hang on, his rod holders were mounted on the driver's side. So when he's driving, the fishing rods, if he put 4 fishing rods in, they would have been obstructing his view. Yeah, people say you can still see through, but it's still obstruction. When you're driving a vehicle, you don't want your view to be obstructed. And that's why I'm not using this. Because of the angle of my bull bar, they were going over on a 45-degree angle, and the tips of the rods would have been distracting me from my driving. This bloke had his fishing rod holder mounted, not only mounted without rods in it, but mounted in front of him, in front of the driving position. Now that's just common sense, but common sense isn't so common anymore. You see people doing stupid shit all the time. Okay, must be attached to the left-hand side of the vehicle or the passenger side. Allow the driver a view of the road and traffic to the front and sides of the vehicle. So don't have an obstructed view when you're driving. It's just common sense. How can he possibly drive around town, or, you know, drive an hour to go to his favourite fishing spot, and you've got 4 rods in front of your face? Just ridiculous. Rod holders should carry no more than 4 fishing rods. And in Queensland, you'll only get the rod holders that have a maximum of 4. You can only have a maximum of 4 rods in Queensland. hanging off your bull bar. Hooks, sinkers and all that must be properly secured, and vehicle lighting must not be obstructed by the rods or the rod holder, okay? So if you're driving at night, the rods aren't in a position that's obstructing your low beam or something like that. Failure to comply. Now, this is 2015 this came out. This wouldn't have got any cheaper. This can result in a $117 fine and 1 demerit point. It's probably gone up from there now. It's probably still 1 demerit point. I dare say the fine, all the fines have gone up since 2015. So there you go, let's rehash again. You can have rod holders on your 4-wheel drive bull bar in Queensland if there's fishing rods in there. Now I know a few of you are thinking, I'll go to an op shop and I'll just leave my thing on and I'll put a $5 rod in there and just leave it in there forever and drive around. Technically, that's legal. You've got a fishing rod in there. I know it's silly. I know some of the legislation doesn't make sense sometimes. But if you did that, if you had a $5 kids rod and you just left it in there, technically there's a fishing rod in there. You can't get a fine for it. Okay, but if you're driving around, you've got rod holders on your vehicle and you can't retract them behind, if they can retract and sit upright behind the bull bar, that's fine. Loosen them and retract them. You can do that or remove them altogether. Pain in the bum, the normal one. So what I did is I went out to BCF the other day and I got these Wilson brand. And as I said, I put it on here yesterday and the fishing rod's pointing across on a 45 and would have been obstructing my view. So what I've done, and I'll show you soon, is I've put it up here on the rhino rack. I've put the mount up there and tightened it so it stays up there. So if I ever want to go fishing locally, just go down the beach, and well, a lot of you are probably laughing now, I'm mentioning fishing on my YouTube channel, the worst fisherman on YouTube, but we haven't got the boat anymore, so Roz and I will still go down late afternoon, have a beer on the beach, put some PVC pipe in and have a fish off the beach. Getting your rods, if you haven't got rod holders, just getting tangled up, trying to get them in the back of the BT50 without breaking them, breaking the tip off or whatever, absolute pain in the bum. I thought I want to get some more rod holders, and then I came across I can't leave them on my bull bar, blah blah blah, so I've mounted them on the roof rack. And the good thing about this Wilson one is you take the pin out and this thing goes. But then I came across the other problem. My ARB bull bar is, because the ends of them are on such an angle back to deflect kangaroos and that, it's not as straight as some bull bars. That created another problem. I thought, I've just wasted $60, and then I thought, hang on, there's nothing saying I can't put my rods up on my roof rack. Now, Rhino rack actually have rod holders, but the trouble with that is you've got to take your reels and all that type of stuff off, which creates another problem. So you spend your first half an hour when you get to the beach setting your rods up. You just want to, if you're just going down 10 minutes to the beach to have a fish, you want to be able to just take your bungee cord off there that secures them in, take your rod out, grab your tackle box and walk down the beach, and she's ready to go. And that's what I'm going to be doing, okay? If ever I go on a long trip, I've got a, and I'll show you in a minute, I will pull the rods apart, put the pulled apart rods in that carry case there and put them in the back of the BT50. But you don't want to spend your first half an hour fishing, putting hooks and sinkers and rods together and all that type of stuff, and putting your reels on, and feeding your eyelets and all that type of stuff. You just want to be able to grab them off your rod holder and go for a fish. That's what it's all about. So what I'm going to do there, I've told you the legislation, everyone. A lot of people, the police don't enforce it up here in Queensland. I've never seen it enforced, but I tell you now, if you get in an accident and you do hit a pedestrian or a cyclist and your rod holder does a lot of damage to them, then you can be liable and you can be in deep shit. So I'm just trying to help you out here. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just making you aware of the legislation here in Queensland. Victoria and maybe New South Wales, you can't even have rod holders on with rods in there. You're going to have to find some other way to mount them. Maybe your roof rack is the best bet for you, or put them on the back of your ute or whatever. The message out of this, that's a no-no unless there's rods in there, okay? You can't have anything protruding for your bull bar here in Queensland, and that includes lights, everyone. Okay, I'm going to put this on the roof rack, put a couple of rods in, and let you know what it looks like. Now, there is nothing there. People go, oh, you can't have rods on your roof rack. Well, you can in Queensland. There is nothing saying I can't mount this on my roof rack and have rods up there. Okay, there's nothing saying I cannot do that. So I'll give you a look and see what it looks like. I thought I'd blow on my money, but this isn't a bad option actually. Right, everyone, I've put the mount over here on the bull bar, so it's down nice and low. And if I want to put my rod holders on, put that in there, and I just come down. I've got to put the pin through now. Put the pin through, lock him in. Right, so that's how quick and easy it was. Now I'll go and get a couple of rods, put them in there, and then I'll get the strap and I'll show you how I lock it in nice and tight. Rightio, everyone, there you go. All that is, that, as I said, this bit's removable. I just keep the clamp in there, which is clamped onto the roof rack. So I'll put the thing in there. I can put maximum 4 rods in there if I want. Roz and I only use 1 each. So there, I've got them in there. What I have done, in case you're wondering, is I've got some Velcro and wrapped around the sinker. Wrap the sinker around so there's no way that sinker can come loose now up here on both. I've Velcroed the sinkers up so they can't come loose and be an obstruction there. And I've put a bungee cord, a hard rubber bungee cord, across the roof rack, across the top of the rods, so there's no way those rods can slide out now. They're on nice and secure, okay? And if I'm only going half an hour to the local beach or want to go an hour up the road, go to Cairns, I could drive to Cairns easily like this, and it's legal, okay? It's legal. There's nothing saying I can't have my fishing rods mounted on the roof rack like this. You're allowed to mount stuff on your roof rack as long as it's secure. And if they pull over, they'll see that it's all secure. Everything's tied down. Sinkers and everything are secure. That there, I believe, is now legal. Whereas I was just having trouble on the bull bar there. So what do you think? Put a comment down there. Now if Roz and I want to go down the beach for a fish, takes me 30 seconds to take the pin out, put that on, grab the rod, slide them in, put a bungee cord across, Velcro up my sinkers, grab my tackle box, and away we go. And they're not in the back of the BT50 floating around. I've got to jam them in the tub and the tips. That's when you can break the tips off your rods. Less chance of the rods being damaged like this, and it's legal. Anyway, it works for me, and it's right out of my way. It's not obstructing my view at all, okay? Not bad at all. So as I said, this option here, if I was going down to New South Wales for the camping with mates next year, I probably wouldn't travel all the way to New South Wales with my rods like that. I probably could, but I wouldn't. I'd pull them apart, take the reels off, put the reels into a clear top bag, and then just have the rods in one of these. That's a Primal brand, okay? You just crack your rods in half if you're one of those rods that pulls in half, and then put them in there, store that, and just put that into the back of the BT50 or in the caravan or whatever. So if we're going on a long distance trip, I'll pull the rods apart, travel like that. This is just for local stuff, so I don't have to stuff around for the first half an hour at the beach, putting hooks and sinkers on and putting the reels on and, you know, all that. You know how much of a stuff around it is. Anyway, I can do it now, and the good thing is that rod holder up there is not permanent. The bracket is, but the actual bit that slides in, I take one pin out, take it out, and leave it. It's not on my bull bar now, so the cops can't ever go at me about having that. You can have rods on your bull bar in Queensland. A rod holder must have rods in it, remember. Check your local state legislation, everyone. I'm pretty sure I read in Victoria you can't have rods on your vehicle at all. Rod holder, even with rods in there. Don't quote me on that. I just Googled that. I think New South Wales was the same. In Queensland, yes, you can have rod holders on your bull bar, only if there's rods in there. Once the rods are out, you must take that off. And having to take the clamps off every time you go fishing and then put them back on, absolute pain in the backside. That Wilson brand there, guys, if you've got a different bull bar, you may be able to put them on the bull bar. That may be fine. Mine comes back too far and it angles the rods across in front of the driver, which was no good to me. That's why I came up with the roof rack option. It's better than wasting 60 bucks, isn't it? But I can still legally go fishing now, which is good. Just remember those guys. I know they're not big, they don't enforce them, but if something goes wrong and you're doing the right, it's like anything. It's all good until someone loses an eye, as they say. Anyway, be good. Let us know what look up your state legislation. I'd be interested in seeing it. West Aussie, South Aussie, Victoria, Tassie, New South Wales, ACT, Northern Territory. Let us know what your local thing is. That's the Queensland one I just read out to you guys. Yes, rod holders are legal in Queensland, only if there's rods in there. I've said that a million times now. Still see people driving around with their rod holders on all the time around here. And as I said the other day, one bloke not only had them on his vehicle without rods in there, he had them in front of the driver's side. Well, I didn't click at the time. It wasn't until I got home and went, he had the rod holder on the wrong side. You just feel like saying, mate, use your brain if you've got one. All right, be good to each other. Let us know what you think, and let us know your state legislation in the comments, please. Catch you later, eh? Got a couple more coming up, and Russ's Bush Donuts are the next cook-up, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you like backyard cook-ups, Russ's Bush Donuts, they're the next cook-up coming up. Catch you later.